Hey there friends, welcome back to another video. In this video we'll be covering Carnival. The ticker symbol for Carnival is CCL. And the reason we'll be looking at Carnival is because of a few potential catalysts as well as signs in unusual option activity. So this is kind of another brief one, and if you tuned into the other videos, I noted that there was this tweet from the option trader John Jarian where he tweeted about a few names spotted in their unusual option activity tracker. It looks like, based on this video, apologies for it being a little blurry, but it seems like the volume is really going for the April expiration, and they're buying the 30 calls for this specific expiration. And when you look at the most actively traded options, you'll notice that Carnival is one of the names that has made its way up to the top. And you can see that most of the sentiment for Carnival is optimistic, with 80% of the calls being traded being, or 80% of the options being traded being calls and 19% being put. So there's good optimism for Carnival, and you can see that, just to like further solidify this notion that the data is accurate, we can also see on Market Chameleon that there's an 80-20 ratio as well. So 80% of the options traded are calls and 20% being roughly puts. Now, when we try to understand what's going on with Carnival, I try to see, just kind of doing a quick search, we see that there's this catalyst that the company recently announced of selling 1 billion in stock as it waits out this potential recovery from the pandemic. And so a lot of investors are kind of looking to some of these names as recovery stocks to try to benefit from, or names that I guess will benefit from the recovery of the pandemic. And Carnival is kind of a prime example of one of those names, mainly because they're focused on this cruise line business where really is dependent on social gatherings. So once those restrictions are lifted, their business will be back up and running, and they can start generating a lot more value. And so this will definitely help increase, I guess, the investment of anyone who kind of jumps into these names as they recover from the pandemic. So you can see that they're offering, they're going to plan to offer 1 billion in fresh shares as their ships still remain docked due to the pandemic. And another thing that I found interesting was that in January they extended their departures through the end of April, um, but they announced a few planned departures of um, to Italy. So that's one important thing to note there, is that they still have a few departures, but they pretty much have extended their cancellations until the end of April, which is kind of weird that it aligns with sort of this time frame that the unusual option activity is going for. And you can see that here, that most of this volume is going to this April contract, with there being a little bit here in this time frame as well, and short-term time frame as well in February. But the specific volume pointed out here is mostly based on just large volume being spotted in a single purchase, meaning that someone came in, I think this video was posted in the morning, someone came in sometime in the morning of February 22nd and just purchased 5,000 call options for the April timeframe. So that's a pretty strong indicator to be on the lookout for. It potentially could have some movement in the stock within that time frame. So when we look at the option chain from barchart.com, we can also see that for the 30 strike price, there's still, even with the 5,000 of volume, there's still 58,000 contracts in open interest. And when we try to convert that into a figure using this calculation from Robinhood, we can see that that trade for this strike price in the April expiration comes out to be roughly $12.2 million, which is just pretty crazy. And I guess investors are really betting on this recovery game to play out sometime within this time frame. And if that ends up being the case, then uh, these will be very profitable trades to be in. So now we kind of want to take a look at some technical analysis as always to try to see if there's potential here for the stock to break above these prices or reach these strike prices that investors think it will. And to do that, we just want to do some quick analysis here, just high level. The stock has been, for the most part, consolidating around these two lines here, and after coming down from the lows, just has remained pretty much stagnant within this the this these two barriers here. But now we can see that the stock is somewhat starting to break past this initial level of resistance here around the 25 25 price, and you can see it's climbing back up to this 26. So if that were to happen, then potentially the next level would be roughly this level here, which is the 33, and maybe a few levels here, which is roughly around 29 or 30. So if this trend continues and the volume continues to be in favor of this momentum, which could be driven by some of this positive catalyst news, then I think there's potential there for the stock to be able to come back up these levels. And if we're giving it enough time until April, then I think that will also allow for more flexibility for the stock to potentially reach these levels in a more healthy way. So that's that's an interesting point to note here, is that this April timeframe will give us more flexibility in potentially getting to those levels. So with that being said, the trade idea, if you wanted to follow the smart money trade, would be to get that expiration for April 16th and going for the 30 strike price calls. Now, for entry point, you would really want to look at coming above uh, this pivot point of 25.98, which is based on this pivot point from historical price indicators from bar chart. And we can see that if we get past this pivot point here, which has been, like, based on historical patterns here, a pivot point in the past, then we could see some upside. And if we do see some upside, then on the upside, the levels to watch would be these levels of resistance, again noted through here in this summary. So take a look and see if that's something that would make sense. And then, as always, the stop loss would be, I think I forgot to update this, but the stop loss would essentially be the stock coming back down below this pivot point of 25.98. So that would be the call options. If you think that potentially there could be some consolidation, then the other way to play this would be to go for the put options. Now, the put options would really just be looking at these levels on the downside below this pivot point. And again, that would be your signal for an entry point. So if the stock is trading below this pivot point and the trend or the stock graph, the graph of the stock is looking bearish, then that would be a good entry point to note, and these would be your levels of support on the downside. So that's the idea there for Carnival. Thanks again for watching, and see you guys in the next one.